Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Fundamentalists podcast. My name is Elliott Morgan. This is Peter Rollins. I'm very excited about this episode, Pete.
Yes. Oh, good. This is my idea, which is to not have my idea, but to ask other people to give ideas. Yeah.
So we did it. We outsourced the topics. Also, we just did a classic Fundamentalists move where we had a really deep conversation for about 2 minutes. And then I was like, yeah, anyway, we'll hit record right there. And so it's I like the immediate shift.
Yes.
It's like someone came into the room, and it's you guys. Welcome.
Welcome.
If this is your first time listening, I think you're going to have a great time. It's a very good podcast. It's irregular. It's a little sloppy at times, but boy, oh boy, is there occasionally some fun things, some fun insights.
Do you think it is a good podcast?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, that's good. That's
Yeah,
nice.
I wouldn't keep doing it if I didn't. And that's not true.
Yeah.
There are some things I do that I do not. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's for a different time. But let's dive in. So you outsourced. You asked anyone you could. You went all over.
Oh, by the way, can I mention for anybody who's watching, I am wearing this kind of indoor-outdoor shirt.
Yes, your morning Hugh Hefner.
Yeah, more. Yeah, that's it. That's what the so it's what I was going for. Yeah. So it's not quite pajamas, and it's not something you could go out in, but it's something you could like hang about at the pool.
Right. My two of my favorite people, Tim and Adam. Tim is Grace's brother.
Oh yes.
And they will listen, but they to this podcast, but they only listen audio wise, and they were curious about what you look like, and so I can only hope this is the first
episode they actually visually see me. Yeah.
Oh boy, that'd be funny. I can't wait to hear what they say because they're very funny people. All right, so let's dive into it, guys. You've said a bunch of stuff. We're gonna do some that are probably too big to answer fully, but we're gonna riff on them. Pete's gonna give a response. I'm gonna give a response. We're going to play around, a little loosey-goosey, because these are really good. These are really, really, really good. Some of them
There's
are.
loads of them. I literally half an hour ago, I said, Elliott's on his way around. It's my turn for a topic. Help me out. And there must be 20 or 30 comments so far. I'm sure there's more coming in. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, here we go. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm not going to say the names. People sometimes get weird about that. So if this is you, thank you so much for the question. So this I thought was an excellent prompt, and it's how to muster up curiosity again and lessen the feelings of being jaded. That when you read that option, I was like, did I?
As a man who's very jaded, you were...
Yeah, did I write that?
Yeah.
So what do you think, Pete? I'm curious. I, too, would love to know how to muster curiosity.
Yeah, so I like this one. I'm going to say a little bit and then hear your thoughts.
I love it.
Yeah. I want to start by saying in French psychoanalysis...
Here we go.
Yeah. In the Lacanianism, can't stop. But there is a notion that we're all hysterics. Although some people are pathologically hysterical, actually there's something about being human which means we're all to some extent hysterics, which simply means we're all people who are a question unto ourselves. So the hysterical thing is, who am I? What am I? What am I doing with my life? Where am I going? Should I really believe what people are saying? Should I really go with the common sense, whether in science or in education or government? It's the questioning. And Heidegger talks about this. He says, what makes a human being is that we are a question unto ourselves. Like a dog doesn't ask what it is to be a dog. We don't say something's very undog-like. A dog's a dog, a rock is a rock. But a human being is a person who asks what it is to be human. And we do it every time. Like when you come in here and we decide whether to have a drink of alcohol or a cup of coffee, we're making a decision about what type of person we are. We generally choose alcohol.
Well, I don't like this example.
So even if my mum phones and I'm like, whether I answer or don't answer, I'm deciding something about what it is and who I am. Mm-hmm. So all that to say, if this is the case, that to be human is to actually be inherently curious, to inherently ask questions, then when you meet somebody who doesn't ask questions, it's because they're repressing their questions. It's not because they're certain, it's because they have repressed uncertainty. So fundamentalism isn't certainty, it's repressed uncertainty, where certain questions we're just too scared to ask and we hide them. We just obey the religious institution, the government, whatever it is. We just want someone else to think for us, answer our questions for us. And all of this to say, I know this is a long-winded whatever, is to say that if you're in an environment where you can lower your defenses, be less scared, less anxious, you will naturally find curiosity bubbling up. Like, you don't actually have to make yourself curious. The curiosity is already there. The questioning is, you already are a question to yourself. And all you need to do is create an environment where really you're in a community of grace, where people accept you for who you are, they love you and care for you, and gradually your defenses lower, and you'll probably realize that you're full of questions about life, about yourself, about the world. The curiosity is in there. It's just been repressed and hidden because of fear, anxiety, negativity.
Well, that's very lovely. Lots to go off on there. What it reminded me of was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it sounds like what you're saying is, if you can create an environment for yourself where you're not, say, freaking out about everything, which I think is increasingly difficult in this chaotic, high dose of information age we live in.
By the way, it's Pavlov's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah,
no,
dude.
I wanted to make that joke, which is a terribly stupid joke of like correcting you incorrectly.
I'm surprised I didn't say that.
It's Maslow's dog.
It's Maslow's dog
and Pavlov's hierarchy of needs.
Yes, and the dog would ring depending on whether or not it had family nearby and shelter and food. So I like the what you're saying. I think what also I would say is, I think curiosity is. This is an interesting topic for me personally. People who lack curiosity sometimes irk me a little bit, and we can go down the projection route, and we can go, well, of course, that's just me projecting onto them, and it must be that their lack of curiosity means that I'm jealous of it, blah, blah, blah. However, I also think sometimes when people, and I think this goes to what you're saying, sometimes when people don't have curiosity, and I have to remind myself of this, it is because they operate in a way that is a little tightly bound. And my experience with certain folks, I think I've heard this recently, where people who sometimes experience trauma or they experience rough upbringings in some way have a difficulty looking inward, so they keep things on the outside all the time. And I think that can create a lack of curiosity for folks. So sometimes I wonder if it's a result of kind of what you're saying, like some sort of thing that is not able to fully settle and relax. Because I do believe that when you are in an environment where your guard is down, curiosity, ideas, humor, all this stuff can bubble up. And
Yes.
I think that's very nice. But I relate very much to the question, because curiosity I don't have too much of a problem with. I think I got that in spades. But the certain other aspects of like, how do you generate this type of thing is a very I also think this is just a pure Jungian whatever, this almost obsessive desire to solve things about ourselves is considered in some post-Jungian circles a very ego-driven thing. It's almost like we have this heroic compulsive need to fix ourselves constantly and to be like, I have this, and so I need to fix this, when in actuality, that is just basically a complex that is being activated in you. And so when you go, how do I get more curious? How do I get more curious? You're inflamed by something that, and I again think that glosses over a little bit what you're saying.
Absolutely. And then in the Lacanian thing is that, which is very similar here, is that in the history of thought, there's been this desire to define and describe what hysteria is, whether it's a biological thing, a mental state, whether it's possession by spirits, right? There's all these different ways of trying to name what hysteria is. But what Freud did, which is really interesting, was he let the hysteric speak. So instead of kind of naming it and saying this is what it is, let it speak. Because one of the things, if universally to be a creature of language is to be a creature of self-questioning, then basically the desire to get fixed and to find the answer and to have security and to have the kind of everything nailed down always fails. So even when people are into self-help, or there's some people I know who are always looking for the thing that's going to work. And so they're looking for the next thing. Maybe it's commodity satisfaction, psychedelic enlightenment, sexual liberation, right? They move through all these ersatz gods, right? Trying to find the thing, even doing courses that will have the answer. And for a moment, they feel great. So for like maybe a week, they're like, I found the answer, right? This is it. But inevitably it fails. But in the Lacanian thing, is the reason why it fails is because we are a question unto ourselves. Not that what the answer is the answer is to enjoy the curiosity, to enjoy the fact that you can never kind of nail things down. You can never have something that kind of like sews everything up.
I love how so many of these things always go back to those little cliches, like it's about the journey, not the destination. It's about the recognizing that you're not going to find some sweet answer. But and I also think like creates like, and it's you get curious about something, and it's going to generate more curiosity about something else. Because my experience, it never ends. It's just a never-ending tunnel. If you find something out, then you go, well, what does that mean about this? And then it becomes really fun.
Yes. Oh, a few things on this. I just thought of something else. Well, the more boring thing first, which is if you're having an argument with somebody, a friend or a partner, you see something on the news about the Ukraine and Russia, and you have a position, and then the other person disagrees with you, and then they have a position. What can sometimes happen is within 10 minutes, you're both arguing like you're world experts, like you know everything about world geopolitical situation, and
like where those countries are.
It's how you can even find them on a map. You know the history of the country and everything, and so you're like this. But then if one person goes, you know what? To be honest with you, I don't really know what I'm talking about. I mean, I have some thoughts, but like I honestly, I've literally done one Google search on it. It allows the other person to then go, oh, yeah, you know what? I'm the same. And then what can happen is a real conversation. So how the curiosity is developed is through your own humility. Like if you create a space where you say to someone, like, I'm not sure what I think. The other person, their defense is lower, and they're like, well, to be honest, I'm not sure what I think. And then the curiosity is
yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, that's difficult, though. It's so much more fun to pretend that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, we would know.
I know. By the way, do you know where I think this comes from? This is the Lacanian reading of this. I'm interested in this because I've just read a manuscript by a guy called Richard Boothby. He's a really great philosopher, psychoanalytic theorist. Basically, one of the things he talks about in the book, the working title is Nothing Sacred, which I love, but I think it's going to be called something else when it gets published. He argues that...
Is it like nothing sacred or no thing
yes,
sacred?
Is nothing sacred, is the nothing sacred. I know I love, it's very clever. But I think the publishers want to call it Embracing the Void, which is not, so interesting. Right. Yeah, but is nothing sacred, I really like. But from a Lacanian perspective, so Freud famously, he saw his nephew or his grandson throwing a cotton reel. Do you know about this? It's in Beyond the Pleasure Principle. He throwing a cotton reel off into the distance, and then the parent gives him the cotton reel back, and the kid throws it away. Kid gets it back, and Freud calls this the Fort Da game, which is the most primitive game all kids play, throwing their food off, their tray, and then the parent. It's about fetch. Basically, it's fetch. It's presence and absence, and so Freud noticed his grandson playing this, 18-month-old, and he kind of postulated that this is, in one sense, the beginning of language, because language requires two signifiers. You can't have a one-word language. You have to have two, because there has to be a slide of signifiers. So presence and absence. The absence generates the possibility of presence. Presence generates the anticipation of absence, right? So the kid is, in one way, probably playing with controlling the very first thing that they've experienced, which is the presence and absence of the mother, or the mother's breast. The mother's breast is present, and it's absent and present, and they're not in control of it. But this kid was getting immense pleasure from controlling presence and absence. So that's kind of the beginning of scientific cause and effect thinking, right? Is presence and absence. Oh, go ahead.
Could you more?
Well, I was going to jump into, but now I'm going to make a deeper point. So do you want to comment on that first?
I have a different thing, but I'd love to hear that you're ending it, because mine is a little bit of a derail.
Oh, derail. Okay.
But
I'll
it's
keep
related to the language thing, which I think is...
Okay, well, then come back to that. I'll finish this thought. That's great.
Look at us go.
So that's presence and absence. But then Lacan, using Freud, talks about a more interesting type of presence and absence that the child experiences, which is Freud calls it das Ding, the thing. And the thing is the abyss of the mother-other's desire. So the infant experiences this thought that there's something that my mother desires. I don't quite know what her desire is, but I feel the desire. So it's present, but it's also absent because you don't quite know what your parents desire. You feel it, you can kind of navigate it, but it's also quite mysterious. This is called the Das Ding. And this is where curiosity begins, is that there's something about the other that is mysterious. We don't know about it. And we're scared of it, and we're also drawn to it. We're repulsed by it, and we also want it. And then Das Ding is connected to another concept for Lacan, which is called Object A. And Object A, or Objet petit A, they don't translate it, is where in our adult life there is the reliving of that primal encounter with what does my mother or what does the other desire of me. And okay,
yes, that is quite Lacanian.
That's quite Lacanian. But for that from a Lacanian perspective is why curiosity is universal. Because there's, from when we're infants, there is this void of the other's desire. The space.
What's going on there? What's going on? Yeah.
What's going on? Yeah. And then the trick for Lacan is it's not just that we don't know the mother's desire, the mother doesn't know her desire. Yeah. So that's why curiosity is a universal facet of being human.
Interesting. I like that. You lost me a little bit, but it is interesting.
Can I give you an example then? Can I give you a good example? Or do you want to say something first and then I'll give an example?
No, give an example.
Okay. Well, so example is somebody I know who...
Whenever you say this, I assume it's me.
Sorry.
And I keep it that way, even if I know it's not true. If you're listening, assume it's you that he's talking about.
Yes. I'd say this is not him or me, but that might not be true. Okay, this is somebody who, when he was about 15, went to an all-boys school. Did you go to an all-boys school?
I feel like I did now.
No, it was an all-boys school. And he went to a bus stop one day, and there were some girls from the neighboring girls' school. Yeah. And what happened was he thought they were laughing at him, right? This group of girls giggling and laughing. They may have been laughing at him or something else.
They were laughing at his tiny, stupid dick.
Yeah, exactly. That's how he felt. And he was like, this is terrible. This is embarrassing. And so he left the bus stop and he walked home. But he was also sexually aroused by it a little bit. He was
because they were laughing at his tiny, stupid dick.
Yeah, exactly. You seem to be really liking this. Is this you?
Yeah, maybe I did go to an all-boys school.
So he was repulsed by and desirous of this experience. So when we were talking, I was like, okay, what's your earliest memory of this? What is it, through free association, what comes up? And the memory that came up is when he was young, one of his earliest memories is going to his sister's bedroom. And his sister was with some friends, and he was knocking on the door. And his sister let him in. And then his sister, who was older, and her friends were like laughing and giggling at him and kind of trying to embarrass him, the younger brother, the kind of thing, right? And at the time, this was not that interesting an experience. It was just like, whatever. But what was interesting was this was his first experience of what does my sister want? There was like this desire. And he knew that they were getting something from him, but they didn't know what it was. Like they were enjoying humiliating him, but he couldn't quite figure out what that was. And then in his adult life, that experience was relived in this experience of the bus stop. So that is Object A. Das Ding was his initial encounter with the enigmatic abyss of his sister's desire. Which then was relived in the Object A of the bus stop, and which repulses
just repeating it.
Yeah, which then kind of becomes part of his libidinal structure. Anyway, there you go.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, totally love it. That's great. I'm just joking. I'm being facetiously contrarian. I was going to bring up how,
and they probably weren't laughing at you.
I know, exactly. So I just want to clarify a couple things. My experience with girls and in high school, which was terrifying. So I think we've talked about this a little bit, but I'm going in one of my classes reading through a crap ton of McGilchrist stuff. And there's a really interesting chapter in the book that I think you should check out about, the book is Mastering His Emissary. And It's about the divided brain and the different hemispheres. He's experienced some contradictions and some naysayers regarding his ideas, which can seem at first glance very binary and very simple, but he goes to pains to make sure that it's very nuanced and broad strokes appreciation of the different hemispheres and the way they function. But it was interesting. So now we've gotten through kind of the biological part of kind of the neuroscience, and we're entering into history and Plato and pre-Plato, Neolithic era, pre-Neolithic, all that stuff. And it's interesting what you mentioned with language. There was something in it about how, first of all, there's good evidence to support the hypothesis that we evolved music prior to evolving language, and we also evolved poetry prior to evolving prose, which you can see in different animals with the way that they not write poems, but they sing, and whales and birds and all that stuff. And,
oh God, I thought you were going to say like the chimpanzees who write poetry.
Yeah, well,
that I'd never heard of.
Yeah, and octopuses can write 8 at a time, which is crazy.
Wow.
Which would make sense because they have brain cells spread throughout their tentacles.
And they do compose music as well.
They do. That's we've all seen it. Yeah. Did you know that an octopus's arm will reach out and do something and take care of something, and the main head of the octopus has no idea that all of them operate simultaneously because their neurons.
Do you not experience like if at night when your hand is in the fridge and you're reading and you're thinking about something else?
Oh crap! You're right. I do that all the time.
But no, I didn't know. So
Anyway, about language, specifically the Greek language, which was inherited by something, I forget the name of it, but there was the inclusion of vowels, which is not necessary in language, and then the idea of prose, of the way that the sentences are structured from left to right, and the verb and the object and the noun. He touches a little bit on how it creates a kind of fragmented way of thinking about the world.
Vowels aren't needed in language.
Correct.
I want you to try to do the rest of this podcast without using vowels.
Vowels are apparently a new thing.
Is that right?
That we added. You do not have to have vowel. Languages get along just fine without vowels.
A-E-I-O-U?
Yeah, you just go, Yeah, but they don't signify, they don't put an actual letter for the sound. It's in the, but basically what happened was it went from pictographs to, whatever graphs, and it went further and further away from like a representation, you're drawing a dog to as a form of language to show that the dog.
I'm critical of that position, but keep
read it though.
Okay, I am.
Yeah, because I'm curious what your thoughts are, because it does line up a little bit with what you're saying and how language has evolved in such a way that it is a left hemisphere categorical. It's meant to control. It's meant to manipulate, and it's all housed in that particular hemisphere, which is the more myopic view of the world, whereas the right hemisphere does not do that. So I would be curious to know your thoughts on it, at least in terms of Lacanian stuff, because we just did a whole module on his understanding of like Plato and how that differs from other people's understanding. And Plato's kind of like not liking images and art and all that stuff.
So is he saying, because this is an interesting kind of linguistic thing, but is he saying that words, you go back far enough diachronically, you go back far enough that that a word has an association with an object. So like that, and that words, so basically you go back far enough and it's almost like we saw an object like a rock, we made a sound. The sound represented the rock. And then as language becomes more sophisticated, it becomes more abstract.
I don't know.
I'm critical of that. Okay, that's good. Okay, because I think that's a wrong
that doesn't sound like
view of language.
What he's, I think he's a little more subtle and
yes,
because that sounds like something made up, but it's difficult because he jumps around. But anyway, that's beside the point. Point being, great book, worth your time, interesting from a Lacanian point, at least to hear.
And he's becoming big again. He's obviously a very famous guy, but in the last year, McGilchrist is all over YouTube again. So he's his work's taken a kind of a revival, which is interesting.
Yeah, I cannot wait to. I'm going to talk to him, and I'm very excited.
Oh yes, that's right. You're going to do an interview with him.
Yeah, I'm going to interview him, and I have many questions to ask him, and I told him some of them. But he is just a really great. I mean, he loves to like, and we're just going off on a tangent here, but he loves Hegel, and he loves. He talks so much about contradiction and about.
So you're trying to win me over. Now, if he likes Hegel, he's all right.
Right. Now, whether or not he likes the way you like him, that's a different matter. But okay, so speaking of all this stuff that we were talking about, let's move on to a different question. I don't know how to muster up curiosity again. I guess relax. I think that might be
that was that the one-word answer.
That's all we needed. Yeah.
Here,
that
that took us on a very nice 30-minute tangent. That was great. That's brilliant.
Ukraine or Canada or Joe Rogan cancel culture. Let's not do that. We actually just did one, but
on Joe Rogan, yeah.
Yes, it will be exclusively available at patreon.com/thefundamentalists.
Because he doesn't want to put it out publicly because he's scared.
It's taken some time. And also, I don't want to...
well, your main issue is it's not topical anymore.
It's not topical.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be like, look at us now. It seems kind of like...
Okay, so a Patreon exclusive, because I feel bad for our patrons because we're terrible with our patrons.
Yes.
But we're going to give that Joe Rogan episode. So,
exactly. Yeah. But there was one about memes that I wanted to dive into.
Memes and mimetic culture, mimetic desire.
Yes, that is it. Let me see if I can find it just so I can give the actual...
By the way, there were so many good ones. Like every single one was a good one.
Did you have one you wanted to talk about besides memes through the lens of mimetic desire from Adam Boyd Stevens?
Oh, you said you weren't going to mention their names.
Yeah, but he's got like one of those like LinkedIn photos. Like I think he'd be okay with it because he's got a very nice headshot and he's very handsome, well put together man. I feel like if you do that, that's a good sign. That
then you don't mind being named.
Yeah. And if that was wrong, then you can call it mimetic desire. Okay, so memes through lens of mimetic desire. We were just talking about Plato. Plato did not like memes. Plato would not like internet memes.
That's a good start. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Plato believed in his ideal forms, and correct me if I'm wrong. And everything that you see is a further and further moved from the truest reality of these ideal forms. So when you get, say, a shoe, you have a shoe, and that's a beautiful shoe. It is a copying of the ideal shoe, the ideal form of a shoe. It's a slightly removed from the actual ineffable. And then if you take that shoe and you make a painting of it, you're even further removing it from the truth and from reality. And therefore, art is bad. Except he didn't totally say that because apparently later he also said that those pieces of art can, in fact, link back to the actual ideal truths. And so the art creates a conduit back and forth a little bit.
Right. Which is, by the way, this is why Plato is really the beginning of philosophy, because so pre-Plato, there was this idea that, and you see it in Greek mythology, that and this is interesting, loads of things said about this, but Greek mythology was not so much descriptions about the world. So people asked, well, did the Greeks really believe in their mythology? Well, not really. Like
the answer I've heard is yes and no.
Yes, it's kind of yes and no, because
but that's putting a belief on them that is very not the belief. They had a different kind of way of viewing.
And the thing is, so they had mythologies that they had were contradictory and all of that. So one way of describing it, I think, simply speaking, is that the Greeks were very interested in the idea of appearance. So the gods made manifest themselves in appearances, in kind of like usually decentering experiences like passions, like if you were overcome. Like everything was a verb then. It was like war was a passion of the gods and desire and all that. But the idea was that behind the realm of appearances, we didn't have any access. So really, you did not know why the gods were doing what they were doing. You had these mythologies that created narratives to help you kind of like try to make sense, but there was very well known that basically the motives of the gods were pretty much unknown.
Unknown?
Yes, unknown.
Okay.
Yeah. But with Plato and the philosophers, they turned it on its head. So Plato was going like, no. So in other words, the appearances told a type of truth. Behind the appearances, we just don't have any access. Yeah. But then Plato turns around and says, well, no, actually, not only can we know what's behind the curtain, we actually know that more. We can know that more. So, for example, a perfect circle doesn't exist, but we can conceptualize a perfect circle as a form.
And that's more than what's actually out there.
Because every time you draw a circle, it's going to be less than a circle. So the realm of appearances is actually the realm of temporality and shadows and things that pass away. But 2 + 2 = 4. Thieves can't break in and steal it. Moth and rust can't destroy it. 2 + 2 = 4.
It's beyond sensory
beyond sensory
reason itself becomes beyond what you see with your eyes and ears.
Exactly. So that's kind of the beginning of philosophy, because philosophers were interested in universals, and that's how science begins. It's what can we speak of that is universally true. Funnily enough, like Newton's laws is a good example. You never see something that stays in motion continually without deceleration, right? So the laws of Newton say that an object will stay in motion unless something else acts on it, or will stay still unless something else. But in
my
reality,
therapist tells me that all the time.
Yeah, but reality, you
annoying.
never. Was it?
My therapist tells me that all the time. It's very annoying.
In what way? Oh, that's
When
interesting.
I'm feeling unmotivated, he goes, "Well, things that are in motion stay in motion, and things that aren't in motion stay still."
Oh, very good.
And I go, "Well, I'm sitting here, aren't I? So it looks like I'm pretty still at the moment." And then we fist fight, and I leave.
Yeah, you mud wrestle naked, and then you
Exactly.
leave,
And we make out. And
yeah. That's what I see in my head. Wow, and then it gets very passionate. There's anger, there's tears, and then there's love making.
The high five at the end.
Yeah. But you never see Newton's laws in reality. Newton's laws are a type of Platonic form.
Which is also to say that Newton's laws are be all and end all.
Yeah.
Then that quantum world came.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. That's true.
And that's a whole.
That's very interesting stuff.
Who wants to get it? Who wants to hear people who know nothing about nothing talking about something they don't know anymore?
Yeah. Well, that's why you tune in. That's welcome to the Fundamentalists.
My favorite quote about quantum physics is if somebody says that they know about quantum physics, they don't know about quantum physics. Did you tell me that?
I don't know, but I know it's a famous quote. Yeah. It's actually, I was on a podcast 2 days ago with this friend of mine, Danny. He's a great guy who wants to do these long form interviews. And I was like, long form interview, that's fine. And I booked a car to go over. I rent a car to go over for 3 hours. We literally talk for 6 hours. Like it's a 6-hour podcast. Like he's wanting to blow Joe Rogan out of the water.
Wow.
Yeah. But that we were talking quantum mechanics at a certain point.
You mean in length?
Quote, in length.
Yeah.
Yes. No, also in everything. We're going to be the next.
Good for him. Yeah. So memes through memetic design.
Exactly. So
bring it back. So
that was a tangent.
Tangent on Plato. It's important. I think it is very important to bring up Plato regarding memes because the whole idea of mimesis, of copying, right? That's all. It goes back to Plato, and it goes back to the value of copying something. I personally consider memes to be internet memes. To
be your sole way of getting knowledge about the world.
Kind of. At least feeling it. Yeah. I do think there's an affect involved with reading memes. It's very fascinating. The word meme comes from originally Richard Dawkins. In The Selfish Gene, wanted a word that sounded like gene and mimesis. So he created meme, and it was a highly transferable piece of information. It could go very quickly. However, it is far removed from the internet memes that we have today, because the internet memes that we have today have a certain amount of creativity, human creativity added to them that makes them also highly shareable, but also a little individual, a little creative, a little something that's different than what Dawkins intended. I personally think memes, I have to give this plug because I think he's so quirky and fun, but there's this dude I follow named Memeanalysis on YouTube, and he looks at memes from I would say...
Oh, that's my coffee machine.
That's him.
Yeah.
What is that, a coffee machine?
Yeah. My thoughts on this really quick. When I was a kid, I wanted nothing more than to be an entertainer. What do we got over there? Are coffee machines going?
I have to say that legally for SourceFed. There's water just spitting out of this coffee machine. Anyway, it's called Memeanalysis. The dude... This is so funny, dude. Life repeats itself. Yeah. You wouldn't believe how
many coffee machines.
Oh my God. Okay, you want to talk about synchronicity? Okay, so listen to this.
Nobody wants to talk about it.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
One of the most viral moments of my career has been, if not the most viral, is a moment in SourceFed when we were having a serious discussion and a coffee machine turned on.
No way.
And we said, what is that, a coffee machine? And it became a bit over and over again because no one could get a word out edgewise because of the coffee machine. And now I know most of those people aren't listening, but what a beautiful moment that just was while talking about memes.
Wow.
And the virality. So that's
we
three
should just
different
stop
things.
now.
This is like when Freud and Jung were talking, and Jung said there's going to be some sort of apparitional and then it happened again.
Yeah.
And he said some jumbo mumbo. So anyway, memes, meme analysis, this dude covers them in a way that he goes through the actual like big memes that kind of take off, Pepe the Frog, a lot of the weird faces, and he matches them up with sort of the ancient archetypal things that they're still describing. So I think memes, personally, I don't necessarily agree with a lot of what he says, but the idea of them being the same thing that's always been around for a very long time of simplifying, making something shareable, making something infecting is there for sure.
Yeah. And here's the thing about this. This connects as
I also
well.
think it's art. I also want to add that I think internet memes are a weird art form that is, it's like the NFT of art. It is a weird thing, and it is hyper simplified, and that is part of the art because I think it has to do with the internet being a highly complex and contradictory place, and memes are so simple and so immediate that it offers a sort of balancing act, a reprieve from the overall chaos of the internet.
Very good. Okay, well, you took memes, so I'll do mimetic desire.
Yes.
And this connects with actually the curiosity thing, because and the das Ding and the object A, because so mimetic desire comes from René Girard. René Girard, the anthropologist, philosopher, who talked about how we learn what to desire through looking at the desire of the other. So we mimic the desire. So I start to desire what you desire. You go out with somebody, you start to take an interest in what they like, and then you feel that it's your desire, but actually you learned how to desire through the other's desire. Yeah. And this creates, well, for Girard, this is one of the roots of violence, because what happens in any society is because mimetic desire is constantly happening. So even with an infant, they're mirroring the smile of the mother or the father. They're mirroring what they see.
Yeah.
But this mirroring creates all sorts of problems because people start to desire the same things, and then they start to fight over those things, and then they start to kill over those things. And this
thinking that they really want those things?
Those things, yeah. So the scapegoat, this is the scapegoat mechanism, then they have to create some third that they blame that creates an opportunity to kind of bring peace back into the violent community. All of that. So mimetic desire is very close to the Lacanian das Ding, which is
like mirror stage. Like
what's that?
The mirror stage.
The mirror stage, and the kind of and the idea that desire is, which we don't really think about, like, is really the most valuable thing in the world. Like we don't like what we desire is the desire of the other. We desire the desire of the one we desire, and so it's not even that we want to be rich. Sometimes we have that. If you want to be rich, ask yourself, who do you want to be rich for? Who are you trying to impress? Whose desire are you trying to evoke, whether positively or negatively? Who do you want to piss off? Who do you want to kind of make go, oh my goodness, right? So desire, and even our fantasies, always, like I talked about das Ding, is our fantasies are often a theatrical replaying in which we try to figure out what the desire is of the other. So all of this to say
curiosity.
It all comes back to curiosity, and it all comes back to how desire and the desire of the other. It's not even our own desire. This is what mimetic desire is about. It's not my own desire that's most important. What's most important is the desire of the one that I desire. So, and this is how we fall in love. This is how we fall into hatred of each other. This is how all of this stuff goes on.
I also think, taking it back to internet memes for a second, I do think there are times, many times, when I look at a meme and I see it and I go, all right, whatever. And then I see it again and again and again. And after a while, like, say, the Drake meme, one of my personal favorites.
Which one?
The Drake meme. He's shrugging off one thing at the top, and then he's kind of pointing at it at the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
Not this, but this. I love the distracted boyfriend meme is another one.
That's become massive. Like,
yes.
Over time.
Jason Momoa sneaking up on Henry Cavill is a very fun one for me. But there is a point where, a little gray area, where I'll see these memes and go, man, all right, I get it. You know, because immediately I'm like, all right, I understand. The more I see them, you know, I input them into my brain. Eventually, I start thinking they're very funny, and I start going, haha, yes, that is funny. I get it now, ha, and I lighten up a little bit about it. But the first couple times, just seeing it once doesn't do it. But repeat sensation, whatever, creates this sort of like, oh, this is funny now. So I do think that's part of the meme is you sort of get used to them, and then it becomes funny.
Yes, and there's something, and I have to think about this a lot more than just us chatting, but the memes that I've seen, a lot of the memes I've seen are precisely about mimetic desire. They're precisely about these underlying structures of desire. Yeah. So so they hit on these fundamental modalities of desire that are universal. That I'm trying, that I need to think of some examples. But actually, to take the examples, like you have a picture of, say, that girl who's walking down the street, the guy's looking at her, the girl's looking
distracted
at her.
Boyfriend, yeah.
What's it called?
Distracted boyfriend.
Distracted boyfriend, right? That is like an underlying structure that then you put different content onto. So there's hundreds of, probably tens of thousands of infinite, right, of different content that's put on that structural form of desire.
You're pulled in one direction and you're desiring something, and you're also, the distracted boyfriend meme, I think, is a great example of the neurosis, showing the neurosis on the surface. So it has a sort of mythological bent to it where you're seeing it all there because he's expressing a desire openly that I think part of that incites in us like, wow, look at him he's being a dick.
Yeah.
Like he's being a unfaithful, gross, brutish dude. But at the same time, it's kind of funny because we can all relate to secretly keeping an eye out for whatever that the forbidden thing is. And I think that's
and if you read it,
universal kind of deal.
Well, yeah, and if you read it in terms of neurosis, and like you could say that, I mean, it's a very similar, like that, he's desiring what's impossible. So the obsessive desires what they can't have. She is an hysteric. Her desire is evoked through jealousy. Like she goes like he's under threat of being taken away, and then you see her like smile, which is almost like she's enjoying
Aphrodite.
So it's a triangulation of neurosis, which is a universal thing, and then you can just put on an infinite number of pieces of content onto that universal neurotic structure.
Yep.
Anyway, there's some thoughts.
I thought that was nice. Do you remember one that you would like? Otherwise, I will choose one that I'm at random.
I remember one that I quite liked, which was just that philosophy seems like a really interesting endeavor, but where do you start? How do you jump in? Is there a good place to begin with the intellectual life?
Okay, I found it. Okay. This is from Berber. And Berber says, the philosophy world seems like the most interesting thing we can pursue. Okay, well, sorry.
I agree.
But it's also Byzantine and tough to find an entry point and what order to go in. Can you disentangle all of that? That is a great question. Mm-hmm. What an interesting just starting off point.
Yes, and this is very so I've got some practical things to say.
I do too.
Okay, well, do you want to start or
I'll start with this one.
You start with it. Okay, go for it.
And then because you'll have something better. So I would say this links up everything in between. The starting point, I think, is that little spark in your brain that goes, this is really, but where do I begin? Don't get into that. Just go, what's the most basic thing that I'm curious about? Because I think any little thread, even if it seems like the most mundane, silly thing that you could answer with a Google question, will immediately lead you into a absolute just hall of mirrors and also history. And I think philosophy it incorporates so many other areas from science to physics to all these things. And it seems to neurobiology that you will be able to just sort of like going through a maze, go, okay, this way, not this way, this way, not this way. And you will find it'll be about the journey. It'll be very enriching.
That's beautifully said. That's exactly what I wanted to say.
Really?
Yeah. Because there is no chapter one to philosophy. That's what I was saying. There's no chapter one. Like sometimes, like if someone has a very kind of ordered mind, they might go, well, is the best thing to do to go to the pre-Socratics and then go over time and look at the development of thought? Yeah. Or is it possible to do chronological and kind of or theme-based, or even like alphabetically or whatever? But you'd never get anywhere, because every thinker you could live for a life on. So the key is, wherever you've got off on the bus, you start. Like where you're at, what's the question you've got, what's is there a thing? Now I would give a little bit more practical advice in the aftermath of this, but it's basically start wherever. All roads lead to Rome. You can start anywhere, and as soon as you start reading one thinker, they open up other thinkers.
Yep.
And if you do it for long enough, and it takes a long time for this to happen, but you do it for long enough and you start to make all of these connections. And suddenly it's like, so I've been doing this for a long time, obviously 20 years. I've been doing it for 30 years. So in my head now, it's almost like a whiteboard with all of these different thinkers and lines between them and back and forth and all that. But it's like you can start anywhere on that whiteboard, anywhere at all. The only thing I would say then is try to start with a good thinker. Try to start with someone who's canonical, someone who's gonna start with so don't start with just a YouTube commentator, right? Start with a writer who's written.
I would say you can start with a YouTube commentator.
Well, yeah, if it's us. We're YouTube commentators, I guess, are we?
No one listens to us.
Well, yeah, we're not popular enough.
No, they listen, but no one listens. I have to interject that you just reminded me of a meme when you're like, it's like a whiteboard and I see all these things. There's a meme from Always Sunny in Philadelphia with Charlie, and it's a very common meme, but he's just blasted out of his eyes and he's got just these red bleeding eyes and he's looking at the white marker board and he just looks like he's gone absolutely insane. And
I think I know him. Is his name Josh?
No, Charlie Day. Okay, Charlie Day, but it's so fun, and that's what it reminds. But anyway, sorry. Yes. So, but I would say if you start with a YouTube, don't get it off. YouTube I watch YouTube for when I am eating lunch and I want to keep consuming it, but I don't want my brain to be too worn out. So YouTube is a nice, easy way to do it, and I like it as a filler. But you gotta go to some books, and I would give a shout out to libraries.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And by the way, I love YouTube now, especially with COVID. One of the few things about COVID is that so many academic institutions have been putting their material online.
Yeah.
So I actually use YouTube as an intellectual resource. So when I say YouTube commentator, what I mean is kind of like, I like some of the pop. I watch some of the pop ones. I watch some of the pop ones that I agree with and that I disagree with because I enjoy it. But there is lots of good intellectual content on YouTube, like huge amounts. Lacan Online is very good, and there's loads of good ones. But
Plastic pills.
What's that?
Plastic pills.
Oh, Plastic pills is very good. They're too Deleuzian for me.
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, but they do very good stuff, and that guy is very good. And I watched his first video, and I actually made a comment, which I never do on YouTube, saying the quality of this is incredible.
Deleuzian?
They're very into Deleuze and Guattari. You're kind of continental philosophers I'm more critical of. Anyway, but they're great. That's not a slag. That's more of a just in-house kind of inside baseball stuff.
Yeah, you heard it first here, folks.
Yeah, the beef begins. Plastic pills versus the fundamentalists. The fight of the century.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like some philosophers are so hard, you can't get into them without secondary commentary.
Yeah, like Hegel.
So, yeah. Yes, like Hegel, like Derrida, like Lacan, like these big ones are like, right? So if you're going to go if you want to start with a big thinker, you also might try to find one of the best interpreters of that thinker and try to read them side by side. But
I would say on a practical note, I really enjoy, because I have a very hard time. I think I can relate a little bit to that question in terms of you can read these thinkers, you can listen to your curiosity, but you don't really know where. There's an urge to put it somewhere chronologically or to place it in the overall context of history. And I do love the book, Passion of the Western Mind. I am enjoying this Master and His Emissary book for the fact that you're not going to learn the in-depth of any of it, but broad strokes, getting a certain ideas can, I think, elicit a little bit of okay, I like this it's interesting that this led to this, and this wave is interesting. What were they thinking there? And you can dive into that. So I don't think there's any wrong answer, but I do think it is an overwhelming thing. So if at any point it stops being fun, I think you should, or at least fun or challenging, like challenging and like, you can get it. Like, I think anybody can get it if you dive into it, but keep it in line with what you're wanting.
A good history, like, and this is where I go, like, there's one wrong place to start, which is Bertrand Russell's History of Western Philosophy. It's terrible. No, I mean, Bertrand Russell's it's just not very good. Like, he literally, I don't think he talks about Hegel at all. I think he's got one footnote, but in terms of a very good exhaustive history, I think I've got a Copleston's History of Philosophy. You're not going to read all of that, but that is a very good, incredibly comprehensive history of philosophy that's actually very, very good. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other ones.
Well, Passion of the Western Mind is one book, and that is 7.
Yeah.
8? 9? My God.
Yeah, it's 9 books. Yeah, and 9 really big books, and the writing is very small.
Yeah.
You're not going to read that start to finish. That would be not. Yeah.
Well, we have time for one more.
Oh, one more.
All right. So let's do.
This is a great way of doing a podcast. I love this. This might be our way of doing it. It's such a lazy way to do it.
That way, we're not trying to stretch out threads. We're trying to connect threads, which is fun. I enjoy that very much. Okay. No. All right. Here is the final question.
Okay. Let's do it.
I was still trying to find it. I know what one it is. Oh, okay. I figured it out. All right. This is from Pseudo Justin, and he says,
"Am I going to enjoy this more? Or are you going to enjoy this more? Is this a peak question or a Elliott
that's
question?"
Fine.
Those socks are very loud, by the way.
They're Kierkegaard.
No way. Oh my goodness! No
fun?
way.
Yeah, it's
That's amazing. Yeah. That guy was interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, the grass is always greener. Comparing yourself to others. How to make my own damn grass green. I figured this out. It works for everybody. You have nothing to worry about. How to not worry about the grass being greener on the other side. How to make instead your own grass green, I think, is the only option, is to metaphorically, you have to.
I was hoping you'd get practical, because I know you do a lot of practical stuff around the house.
Yes, there's a lawn company called Sunday. No, which I've used. Anyway, so you get some green tinted glasses.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's nice.
Boom.
There you go. Yeah, very good. So is it my turn now?
Yeah, if you want. I figure we're winding down, but I think it's a bigger question. Yes,
well,
if you answer in a sincere way. Okay. I think I was a cop out.
Yeah, well, because I was also thinking, what's raccoons? You have a problem with raccoons destroying your garden, don't you?
Yeah.
Do you still have that?
No, they destroyed the garden, so the raccoons are still there. It's just the garden.
Oh, right.
The yard is dead, but the raccoons are still there. They have
Do you see them? Do you see them?
Quite frequently.
Oh.
Yeah, and they're, I'm not going to lie, pretty cute.
Well, see, this is the thing I know about you. Like, you love animals. I don't think you would hate them. I don't think you could.
It's very difficult to get angry in the daytime at a raccoon who is laying inside your bushes, staring dead at you, eating a leaf like it's on a couch, eating crackers. It's very cute. And, you want them to leave, but not entirely. So.
Very good. Well, okay, so my answer, I'm going to try to do a callback here, connects with the mimetic desire, and it connects with curiosity. So look, this is impressive.
Nice.
If I do say so myself, though, is the grass is always greener. I think it's and the dusting and all of that is that often we kind of assume that the other has this access to their own desire. This other has some sort of secret desire. This something. So a lot of in a Lacanian frame, there's basically the idea that we tend to fantasize that someone else has everything that we don't. We look at stars, or we look at movie stars or musicians, or we look at even friends or whatever, and we fantasize that they have some undivided, absolute kind of like pleasure, and we feel jealous. We either feel jealous of them because we desire what they have, or we're envious of the relationship they have with the thing that they have. So envy is you don't want what they have, but you want the relationship they have with maybe their partner or their whatever. And in Lacanian psychoanalysis, this is a fiction, is that the other is just as divided as you. Now, they may have a better, happier life in small ways, like there's better and worse, but there's nobody who's sitting and is not a question to themselves. No, there's no one who's not an hysteric. There's no one who is not in some way disavowing or wrestling with or repressing their own dissatisfaction. That's a part of life. And once you realize this, and this was my insight, this is called, and this is another question actually that somebody mentioned, this can be called subjective destitution for Lacan. Subjective destitution sounds very negative, but it's the moment in which you realize that the other that you're fantasizing has the greener grass is also divided like you. That whenever Hegel said the mysteries of the Egyptians were mysteries to the Egyptians themselves, for my friend, the desire of his sister was a mystery to his sister as well. Like there is a certain
no
sense,
one knows what they're doing.
Yes, there's an alienation within all desire. The grass, then when you realize that although somebody, as I say, might have a bit of a better life in some ways, and you can work to get a better life, you realize that there is no undivided person. There is no non-alienated subject.
Lovely. What a great, actual, substantial answer. I have a slight reply to it. I would say...
You know someone who has everything.
I've seen some green grass in my day.
Yes.
But
Kanye West.
Exactly.
Yep.
God, you want to talk about that? Yeah, I don't worry. I do not envy his green grass.
Okay,
He, whatever. So, but in my time on the internet, there have been periods in which I have been and my friends, my coworkers, colleagues have been the symbol of green grass.
Yes, 100%.
And I've heard verbatim how much people have seen this sort of dynamic, this sort of green grass, and thought, man, if only I had something like that. And then, of course, hyper self-aware, hyper neurotic, hyper whatever, I was always very aware that was not not an unreal thing, but not as greeny, grassy as people would like to have thought it was.
I can testify to the lack of green grass.
I think everyone can at this point. We've made it pretty clear. But it definitely, however, I will say that also that putting on the it was like a responsibility almost of being this sort of friendship green grass, this sort of wonderfully beautiful collective in all aspects. It definitely, though, I would say the act of seeing people go, oh, these people have it all together, helped reveal how not together it was. And so I don't think it's necessarily the green grass is something you can escape from. I also think that the active part of desiring the undesirable in some way, whether or not they desired it or not to, is all part of an action of life. It's a very beautiful thing because I went from being very like, oh, people just don't understand. They're whatever. It's, they're thinking grass is greener, but the truth is blah, blah, blah. But the more I look back on it now, it was the actual reality was I was unable to see how green the grass actually was. And that I wouldn't have been able to do it had people not projected that a little bit. And I think that's nice.
Oh, yeah. Well, sometimes there's a substitute enjoyment for the...
No.
Well, but there's a thing in America I noticed where you write letters about how great your kids are, and sometimes your kids you go, oh, little Johnny's getting A's and is going to go to Harvard when little Johnny's got a drug addiction, lives in a car, right? But is it because there's a substitute enjoyment of thinking that people think that you have the objective desire?
Yeah.
So there's a desire. That's why they say success is the sweetest revenge, not because success in itself is good, but because if
grass, baby.
Yeah, if someone thinks you've got the green grass, then you get the pleasure of them thinking that you have the pleasure.
Yeah, isn't that dark?
Yeah, it's dark. But you're exactly, you know this from the inside, and this is why it's beautiful, is that because this structure, I think the structure is so universal and it's so caught up in contemporary society, and we need to break free from it, but that you know it from the inside, that yes, the people looked, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people look to you guys, but you weren't even trying to say this, but as the grass is greener, like a lot of lonely people who had broken relationships with their family, broken relationships with other people, a lot of lonely people who weren't able, like myself when I was younger, probably still now, but not feeling comfortable in social environments, they would watch online a group of friends joking, having fun together in this beautifully lit, really like this incredible environment, and it was like, that's what I want. And they either idealized it or they were envious of it, but they were drawn to it.
Which is not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing necessarily. Like, yeah, there's good and bad.
It's just that we also wanted it.
Yes. Yeah. The people who were in it.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's the thing, is like that even the ones who were in it
Wouldn't this be great?
Wouldn't this be great if this fiction was real? So yeah, and
it was, parts of it were real.
Parts are real. Well, yeah, and the parts of it is like there's great friendships, there's great things, but nobody has the utterly fulfilled, alienated reality.
Yes, non-alienated.
Yeah. And in fact, so the cure is to realize that the grass is never as green as we want it to be, and it's never as green as we think the other person has it.
And sometimes the grass is green because people have been shitting all over it.
Yes.
And that's my final thoughts on this, folks. If you would like to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/thefundamentalists. You can also watch the video format of this at youtube.com/Elliott.
See my indoor-outdoor pool shirt.
It's worth it this time, guys. And for any whatever, you can DM us, let us know. We're happy to talk. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Any closing thoughts, Pete?
No, I was one thing, and this is my closing thought on this. It would be living in LA, you get to sometimes see behind the curtain. You get to see the other side. You've had this more than I have, but where maybe you get to go to a party with somebody who is very rich or very famous.
Yes.
And you see behind the curtain and you realize that is just as broken. Sure. I mean, it's not that it's the same, because it's not that the winners are just as bad as the losers. The losers lose doubly. Like, if you're poor, you lose doubly. But it's we've got a system where even the winners lose. So
yeah. Because I feel like it's really easy to go down the path of like, we're all the same.
No, it's
exactly. We're all that. Just. And I'm like, no, rich people have it better.
Yeah.
Like, you can't fool me there.
Yes.
They have nicer, funner cars.
Yes, that's it. So it's like, it's not that the winners are losing, the winners are winning, but in their winning, they're also losing. And the losers lose doubly. The losers lose incredibly badly. But the whole system is premised on the fiction of greener grass. If we could all kind of like break free of this libidinal fiction, we might be able to construct a society of less inequality. Anyway, I don't want to get too
that's a different, but I think it's a lovely note to end on. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time.
See you next week.